Okay, let's consider calculating real GDP when you're only given a little bit of information. So this question, number 9, and one very similar to it, I believe it's question number 12, were among the most missed questions on this test. The question said, consider an economy that only produces 2 goods, DVDs and DVD players. Last year, 10 DVDs were sold at $20 each, okay, 10 DVDs at $20 each, and 5 DVD players were sold at $100 each. Okay, well this year, 15 DVDs were sold at $10 each, and 10 DVD players were sold at $50 each. Okay, so this is really confusing. We have changing amounts of output, we have changing prices. What's going on, right? How are we supposed to calculate this? And I should point out that this is actually not something we address directly in class, but it is on page 113 in your textbook. So you want to make sure you're reading the book. And also, in the Unit 2 practice questions, the multiple choice questions that were optional to do, this exact question was actually in there. So there are a number of resources that you should be using besides merely your class notes. But let's look at how we want to do this. And I'm actually going to switch the screen back so I have some room to write on here. How are we going to figure this out? Well, we want to figure out real GDP this year. So our focus needs to be on what's the quantity we produced this year. So this year, how many did we produce? We produced 15 DVDs this year, and we produced 10 players this year. Okay, so we want to be able to compare that level of output to last year when we had just 10 DVDs and 5 players. Clearly our economy grew, right? It clearly grew. So we want to be able to figure out how can we compare those 2 years if we don't have a price index. So we can't just take the 15 DVDs, right, times $10 and say 150 plus the 10 players, 100, and come up with 250, because that's not going to help us. Using nominal dollars or today's dollars is not going to help us. So how can we adjust? Well, another way to do it is actually to just go back and use base year prices, right? We wouldn't want to do this really for adjusting the actual GDP because it would be ridiculously time consuming to go back and adjust the price of every individual good in the GDP. But when you only have 2 goods or 3 goods, you can actually use this method. So rather than multiplying by this year's prices, let's take this year's output and multiply by base year prices. So what were the base year prices? Well, last year, it says last year is the base year, and last year DVDs cost 20 bucks a piece, right? And the players cost $100 a piece. So there you go. We now have last year's prices, the base year prices. So now we can see 15 times 20 is going to be what? It's going to be, I can't do math now, 300. And 10 times 100 is going to be 1,000. So the answer is 1,300. I would go back and reread page 113 in your textbook and look through the practice questions. And also when you come in and look at the questions, work on question 12 because this reviews exactly the same concept.